Hi, I'm Lisa,
And I'm Ray.
and you're listening to.
This Midlife Hustle.
In this episode, we're going to be telling you a story of how we almost lost $250,000 on a business/property to
Yeah.
start an adventure.
Yeah. So the context, I'm not going to do a recap this episode and kind of tell the outline like I normally do. I think I just took some notes on some highlights that I want to tell in this story.
Mm-hmm.
And we're just going to kind of tell the story and recollect some of the details. I would like to try to keep it, on the business front of things with lessons we learned business wise. But I know you have a lot of strong feelings along the way. So we'll do our best to work through that. So let's tell the context and the background. Lisa has been traveling between Maryland and Florida. We live in Florida. We have a business, a salon in Maryland. And at some point soon, in the next couple of years, that salon will be gone. And we were trying to think of how we can set up ourselves in Florida for the next business. So we were looking for the next commercial property opportunity
Mm-hmm.
or a lease or anything. So I spent many, many months, actually over a year, looking for a lease.
It went fast.
Yeah, but that was just a lease. We went through lease after lease after lease, and none of them were really good. They were the ones that were in nice places were asking way too much money.
Mm-hmm.
The ones that were not in nice places just wouldn't have matched our brand. You wouldn't have been able to attract the type of clientele for the prices that you charge because you provide, such awesome, high quality services and expertise, et cetera. So need to make sure that we can attract the right type of clientele. And but the thing is that if we could find a property that we can actually own and invest in, that would have been sweet. So we started looking for that. Well, again, not a lot of great opportunities. The ones that were already established, they would just wanted way too much money, in my opinion. Yeah. And we finally found one that was like, ooh, this is exciting. Let's not talk too much about the town or the details because I don't want to, I want to keep that a little bit anonymous to protect the innocent, so to speak.
Okay.
So this person really did not know how to manage business that we were dealing with. They didn't know much about business. They didn't know about the salon, even though they were a salon owner for many years. It's a little bit crazy. So I won't mention the town, but it wasn't about an hour drive away from us. We live in Central Florida, and it was about an hour drive away. So it would have been a little bit of a burden for us, but it was a nice opportunity. There's a nearby community that were fairly, affluent, and it was growing, and it would have been a nice opportunity to grow with them. It was a good price, and part of the reason it was a good price is it was a kind of a fixer-upper, but we thought it had potential. So anyways, let's get into this part of the story about acquiring a commercial property. We went and visited, and the visit went well, I thought. Right?
Did I go with you the first time?
Yeah.
I did. Okay.
Yeah. We met the realtor there. We walked through it. There was a lot of stuff in the way, so we couldn't get a good view of all the details.
Right.
There were some things that concerned me, but not so much to say this isn't going to work at all. In fact, I thought it was going to work. And I thought the price was close to right because there was a lot to fix. But at the price they were offering, I thought, well, I think we could really grow this into something that's worth something here, right? And it would have been a nice setup for you to provide some services, me to provide others. We kind of had a dream of working out of the same space at some point in the future. And it would have been a nice opportunity to own our own business, grow the value, like all the money we put into it, we would have got out because
eventually.
Because we would have been improving the commercial space. And at some point we would have had an exit strategy to sell it and at a pretty penny because we would have gotten like 3x back,
Right. It was an upcoming growing community too. I was scared, I think, from the beginning, just because of location is everything. But once we started like exploring around the area, I got more comfortable and talked to like people when we walked through the town and whatnot.
Yeah, we really did our homework. We went and ate, started eating breakfast in the area.
That scared me because the people that were coming in with mullets, that scared me. I was like, oh, I don't know.
All right, so you're going to see a theme. You're going to hear a theme in this episode about should we have paid attention to our instincts. I want to ask at the end of this episode, let's save it for the end. But along this story, we're going to several times have been sent signals that we ignored, I think.
Yeah, we both did.
Because we thought that there was potential.
Yeah.
There's this thing I always say to you, it's a dual-edged sword. What I say to you is, if we can have success where others fail, that's where opportunity lives. Like if we can figure out a problem and how to solve it where others couldn't, that's where opportunity lives. Some people may look at this and say, oh my God, that's a dump. I can't take that. It's kind of like somebody doing a house flip or something in that way. Same thing in business. Like, oh, there's an underserved community here and I think we can serve it. I think they would appreciate our brand and we need to do it before somebody else does. There's an opportunity there. So blinded by the opportunity and by the challenge of overcoming every obstacle put in front of us that I think we may have ignored some of the signals. Yeah. But let's save that for the end because we have a lot of little signals that we were sent that we chose to ignore because we were operating under this principle of let's try to solve problems. Yeah. So we really went all in. We started investigating the area. We started visiting the area, like kind of just on day trips and such. Yeah. We got really comfortable with the idea of owning the business and being in that area. I went a second time and I measured everything from stem to stern. I measured every window, every room. My intention here was I wanted to really get the vision going. And I came home with enough information that I can model everything in a 3D program. I use SketchUp and I know how to model that and do 3D rendering, light tracing, rendering, and all that type of stuff. So you get these photorealistic images. Really gives us, I've done this for some of our other businesses, and it really gives you a good idea of what the layout's going to look like, what the problems are going to be, solve them virtually before you're in the space. And then you can design it well and all that. And we got really excited. So we started getting excited about the potential. And so we started negotiating. Now the initial negotiations were challenging because she was adamant she wanted a certain price that just was ridiculous. Yeah.
It's frustrating.
You're rethinking about it all?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was weeks and weeks that we would be going back and forth and no progress. Like on the teeter of like, you know, the broker telling us like, I think we have a deal here. I just need her to come around and then her not coming around. And it was way too long, right?
There was so many. That was red flag number one.
Yeah.
I think with the realtor, because we used her realtor to represent both of us. And then I feel like being in the industry where I work with so many people, that working with her and not having our own realtor was a red flag number one. We should have listened.
Yeah, she also represented herself as as having experience with commercial properties. And it became evident she really didn't. Right. At least she didn't, I don't know. Maybe she does.
She was...
But maybe small potatoes or something. I don't know. It didn't seem like something she did regularly.
No. And I think she was the stylist's client as well.
She was, yes.
And I think mixing the two and then not having experience, we should have listened.
Yeah, I do. I will say, getting to know her through the process, I do think she did a good job of avoiding conflict of interest. I do think she did. But you do wonder if there was something in the back of her mind, you know, that subconscious bias, unconscious bias is what they call it. So there may have been some aspect of unconscious bias that she was having. But as things unfolded, you know, we did get excited. We got excited enough that we came to a price point that I was like, oh, let me make sure we can actually pull the trigger on this deal. And so I applied for a couple home equity loans.
Yep.
And got approved. But I didn't want to pull the trigger on them until I knew everything was good. Because once I pulled the trigger on it, I knew I'm committing ourselves to this additional loan, which is going to cost some money. And I was fine with taking on that loan if it was going to pay me back, if I was going to get money, was going to make money from the money, right? Then not just me, we both had this long conversation, right? Like because it was a big deal. Like, do we want to actually have another loan against our home? Because we kind of benefited.
Yeah, I was scared to do that. Yeah. Not scared. I was kind of adamant at first. If you like, no, I don't want to. No, I don't want to. No, I don't want to. And then I saw the benefit of it once you know, everything was explained to me and stuff like that. So,
yeah, I mean, it's sometimes, you know, you have to make an investment to make money back. So like that was the whole idea. Like we could have put that money in, and by the time we were ready to sell the place, it would have been worth easily $500,000 or more.
Yeah.
In addition to the money we would have made from operating the business. So it really would have been a win-win that like, you know, 10, 12% on the loan would have been nothing in the grand scheme of things. And we had a plan to be able to pay it back even faster than what the terms were. So that was all good. And we had a verbal contract,
Mm-hmm.
but then it took several weeks with no updates.
I gave up. You kept going. I don't know how
Yeah.
you kept going.
Well, I was in part because I was still messing around with a 3D model. That took
Yeah.
many months to actually, I just kept on improving it, making it better,
Mhm.
doing that to make the time fly, really like just being
Yeah.
ready to go for this deal.
Yeah.
And what we learned next surprised us, right?
Yeah.
But if you're watching so far and you like this episode, now's the time to hit the like button, subscribe, share this with friends. I do have a Patreon account set up for the other work that we're doing and for all the projects. You can sign up for that and you'll have access to information that I share with that community, be part of that community, and be able to ask more questions, ask me for resources. I'll provide them if I have them, etc. But this particular episode is more about telling a story about this business, and there won't be much in the Patreon for that. But let's keep the story going. So what we learned next, why was it taking so long? Well, they were dragging their feet, we learned, because a divorce was complicating things.
Yeah.
And this isn't the first time in business this has happened to us where somebody else had a divorce they were going through and complicated things, unfortunately. I know I want to try to have some compassion about people who are going through that.
Yeah.
But in our industry, in the salon industry especially, it just seems that there's a lot of people who are just, that's a nice way to say it, mentally unstable.
I don't
And
know.
maybe that's not the right way to say it. I'm right. That's not fair.
I don't know, because it's these husbands that want half of the business.
It's
So
true.
they see the money coming in. They see, and they just either that or they're vindictive and want to destroy the woman. And I mean, from everything we've heard, it's always the man that wants.
Well, but we're seeing,
half.
yeah. All right. You're absolutely correct. In the couple cases that we've interacted with, that was the case.
Yeah.
It blew my mind that the woman was the primary breadwinner and the man was trying to get money from her in the divorce. Like,
Right.
all right. Wow. But we don't have,
It's like you coming in and saying, Lisa, you're done. We're done. The business is mine. I'm taking over. Okay, there you go, buddy. What are you going to do with it? Nothing.
Right.
What are you going to do with it?
I would never do that.
No, you would not. But I'm just saying, like, just think of those women in that position. Like, they're locked.
All right. So let's put a pin in this conversation because we also don't have all the details.
Exactly.
It's all third party. We don't know what's what.
Exactly.
All the details.
But I'm rooting for the woman because I'm pretty sure that we're the ones that are in the salon doing hair.
Yeah.
And the men, yes, they support. Yes, if they put money into it, great. But come on now,
You don't know the details, though. You don't know. She could have cheated on him.
I know.
You don't know.
I know.
So anyways, that was unfortunately a complication. But that got my spidey senses going. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up like, oh, we've got some legal complications here. Let me, early in this process, go get an attorney, get some advice, and make sure everything is handled properly. I think it's also worth noting that while we were waiting all that time, I was doing my homework on property tax information.
We got the lawyer.
Before, I just said that we hired a lawyer.
Okay.
But the reason I hired the lawyer, one of the other reasons I hired the lawyer is in all that time we were waiting and I was doing research on property taxes and such, I just so happened to come across like documentation showing a criminal, seeing a mugshot of this business owner, and also seeing like things like tax evasion and not paying county taxes and being taken to court like year after year after year for not paying taxes and having liens put on the property. It was like, oh God, all right, what are we dealing with here? What mess are we dealing with here? So yeah, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, I'm gonna take back what I said before where the man because within finding out all of this, I just remembered something. He was a barber.
That's right.
So he was in the business with her. So I take some of that back with this scenario because he was a barber there. So he is a licensed barber and she's a licensed cosmetologist. So I'll take a little bit of that back.
And we don't know all the details.
Right.
So anyways, it just the business side of this, let's focus on the business side of this. It got us worried that some legal ramifications were waiting to be uncovered. Like maybe there was a lien, maybe there was a creditor, maybe there was something against her property. Maybe she had done some things illegally. Well, we learned a lot.
Yeah, we learned a lot.
I'm going to skip over it for the benefit of this episode or else we'll be here all day. There was a lot we found. A lot that scared us. So went to the attorney.
But we still stuck in.
That's right. Another many red flags. Like business owner, like liens against the property, business owner having a mugshot for recently for like, I think it was a bounce check or something.
Our lawyer even said, you sure you want to go through with this? It's crazy what I'm seeing. So yeah, I mean, there was a lot
And
of,
what I said to him, if you can be sure that we can be cleared legally, I'm
yeah,
fine. And so here's the next step. That's what I want to get into next. His biggest advice to us is, hey, I need you to know on business properties, it's not like home ownership. You're
yeah,
not protected. Once this sale closes, if they find anything after the fact, it's on you. If they find out that there's some EPA violation and she contaminated the
yeah,
ground or anything, like you own that property now, it's on you. And you can't go back to her like you could on a home situation and say, "Oh, you misrepresented yourself." Like, no, a business contract that says like when this is said and done, it's all yours, including any problems. You need to make sure you do due diligence. You need to make absolutely sure you dot every I and cross every T.
Yeah, that was a huge thing to be, taught to us, that buying a home and buying a commercial property is very different. Very, very different, which I didn't know. And then that scared me because I was like, whoa,
Yeah.
which we're gonna get into more because the whole thing of us finally saying no, our last and final red flag, we were just done. We were
Yeah.
just like,
So let's save that for the end. That's coming next. It's coming up. So the lawyer did his thing and gave us an analysis and said, look, there's a lot here, but I know I can protect you from this.
Yeah.
From what I'm seeing so far, there's some liens that will be satisfied. No big deal. There's some things with her personally. No big deal. We'll protect ourselves with contracts and verbiage and stuff like that.
At this point, how much are we in? Like money wise? Do you remember?
At
This is before. This is just a lawyer.
So now, all right. So now we got a lawyer on retainer.
Yeah.
So, and we started paying for certain, inspections and stuff like this. So we're about to get into this next phase where he advised us to have inspections. So let's include that. We'll talk about that next. But if you're asking for price, at this point, we're probably about $2,500 in between retainer for him, fees for him, and inspections and requesting records from the town and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So we're $2,500 in already.
That's not refundable.
Yeah. And I didn't want to go there until I learned all this other stuff. But we needed to be protected. We were about to spend $250,000 on a business, and I needed to make sure that we were properly protected.
Money well spent, but it's just again, lessons learned. Like,
yeah,
we within this process did lose some.
Let's start learning these lessons. So first thing he advised us, he in general, aside from the legal aspect of all the paperwork, he advised us to get all the inspections, which is generally good advice. Against my better judgment, I was so excited and blinded, I was ready to skip a lot of them.
I was about to say that, yeah.
But when he told us that, no, you need to make sure you do diligence here because everything is on you. Even if she misrepresented herself, it's done once the deal's done. I was like, oh, I didn't really understand the gravity of that situation.
Yeah.
So we paid the money to get our favorite inspector out there, and he went through it with a fine tooth comb.
Yeah.
He found a lot. We'll talk about some of the bigger ones.
The bigger ones.
He found a lot, but at the end of the day, even with the big ones he found, he said, Ray, like you really negotiated a good deal here. He also does some commercial investing, and he's like, you really have a good deal that you negotiated here. These things that you can fix these. Some of them are big and they will be big ticket items, but you can negotiate a little bit more, and you can really turn this into a great property. But Ray and Lisa, the one thing I wasn't able to inspect because I couldn't find it. I couldn't find if it's a sewer or a septic, and I couldn't find the septic and I couldn't find the sewer. So please go and it's not my area of specialty. Go hire yourself a septic inspector that can locate the septic field or locate the sewer, and just to make sure you're fine on that. So, okay, we'll save that for the end. It should be no big deal. We'll come back to that later. So next, we had a roofing. One of the things, let's talk about some of the things he found. So let's talk about the big things he found. He did see some evidence of like maybe some insect damage.
Yeah. Mold.
And he saw some evidence of mold. He saw some weird stuff with the wiring.
Yeah.
And he saw some weird stuff with the foundation, but nothing that couldn't really be fixed. And he found a hole in Florida during hurricane season, an actual hole in the roof.
Yeah. That he could see the sun.
That the owner promises me they never had a leak.
Yeah.
I don't know how that is possible in the middle of hurricane
And it
season
went,
in Florida. There's no way.
yeah.
There's no
And
way.
what hurricane would hit? Ian?
I don't remember which one. Yeah, it might have been Ian.
And it came through. And in the process, we're dealing with this, and we're like, oh boy, how is that going to hold up? Because at that point, we knew about
The
the
hole.
hole.
And she didn't do anything. Even after being told about the hole, she
Yeah.
didn't do anything to, like, she didn't put a tarp up there or anything.
I'm feeling really stupid right now.
I know, right? As we tell the story again.
Tell the story to you guys, I feel real stupid.
Go ahead. It's okay to laugh at us. You can do it.
You can.
We laugh at us sometimes.
I feel real stupid. What the hell? I mean, granted, we were very busy with life.
But let's defend this decision. So what was my answer? Okay, let's figure out how costly this is going to be.
Yeah.
How much is it going to be to replace the whole roof? Because if we can do it and have a price adjustment, it's still worth it, right? If that's the only problem and there's not a lot of damage that resulted, then it's still worth it. So we were trying to look at it from an objective business point of view. So next step was we got some roofing companies to come out and give estimates. Again, this is a case where, like, the broker is telling me, anybody who's charging you more than $6,000 is ripping you off. Like, literally every roofer I went out that went out there gave me like a $30,000 to $40,000 estimate because of the gravity of the repair that needed to be done. All the fascia had become rotted and needed to be replaced. The venting needed to be updated. There like a barn door that was just kind of not done properly, and the vinyl wasn't right, so that needed to be redone. It was a big deal, and they just wanted to make it sound like $6,000 to fix all that. No, not even close. So we got those estimates just so we can show them. Okay. Then we had an HVAC inspection to figure out what was going on with that mold situation. They tried to tell us, the mold is just on the surface. It's, it's an older place. It's just surface stuff. It's no
Again, our main inspector said we should have someone come out. That's not his, he can detect things, but
not his specialty.
Not his specialty.
Yeah. So basically the HVAC came out and said, look, this entire system is so aged, it's going to fail any minute now. In fact, one of those things that came up in the search was this company came out and did a repair to the previous system, and the owner never paid the bill.
Yeah.
So they took her to court and stuff as well. So they knew the system well, they knew the property well, and they had recently replaced one of the parts, but she didn't replace everything that they advised.
Yeah.
So
and I knew something was wrong because one of the walkthroughs, I was like, Ray, why is there floor air conditioner units in almost in sections of the
it
the
was
space?
like the HVAC failed and she was just trying to do something.
So it was, which, again,
red flag,
ignored because we had a budget and it was in our budget, so.
Yeah. So anyways, the HVAC originally came out just to make sure things were good enough to be functional. My goal, I was telling them, like, I just want it good enough to start, and then we can replace the HVAC in a couple of years. They're like, no. First of all, if I just replace one part, there's so much mold throughout the system, you're not going to really get rid of it all. And if you're sensitive to mold, which I am and you are, and customers would be, then you really want to replace the whole system. And the vents, the ductwork they were crushed in spots. They were disconnected in spots. He's like, I don't even know how this was working at all. There were sections of insulation missing throughout the space and all that stuff.
I think once we hit the mold section, I started to say, I'm done. I don't want it. Numbers will keep creeping up. But again, you negotiated.
Well, so again, with this, I looked at, like, how much is it going to cost to replace? And the number was high, but reasonable. Like, all right, if we can get this adjustment, we'll be okay. So before we get into that, the insect inspection now. So the insect inspector come out. He was looking for basically termites or ant damage.
That didn't come back too bad.
Not too bad, but it was something that I hadn't even realized. Like, there were holes in the stucco, and the stucco did have some problems that were going to need to be repaired as well. But there were holes in the stucco from a previous termite treatment that was done, and they were never plugged up, which I guess it depends on the person who does it. Some people plug them, some people don't. But they had termite treatment done in the place, which means it had a active termite infestation at one point. And they treated, a whole big section of the house that we can't see. So the inspectors can only tell you so much. They're like, well, look, we're just kind of deducing, like, we see that there was previous treatment. We see one area that there's evidence that there was some activity, but we don't see any activity now. So most likely the treatment was effective. And as long as the wood structures aren't, we don't see any further, damage. So you're probably okay. Just get these couple areas replaced. maybe do another treatment just out of abundance of caution, and you should be fine. So that wasn't, like you said, that wasn't the biggest deal at the end of the day.
Yeah.
We could have done a treatment
Yeah.
and been on a schedule for treatments, and
Yep.
I think we would have been okay. So we went back to the seller and said, like, look, I know we already negotiated a good deal and you didn't want to go any further, but we found several major issues, the HVAC system and the roofing. And for us to go forward, you're going to have to meet me halfway. Basically, I was not even asking for a full concession. I was willing to take some of the risk and say, like, I think we asked for like $30,000 less. Right. And so I think we were below 200K now.
At that point. Yeah.
Yeah. And we agreed on a number. I think it might have been 180. Do you remember? I don't remember.
I think it was below 180.
Maybe
actually.
170 is probably what I asked for. And I basically drew a hard line because I was like, look, it's like $60,000 more damage than we thought. We still think it's worth it, but only if we can get it for 170K. She took a long time to chew on that. And we knew that there was a divorce in the mix as well.
They had to get approved by both their lawyers and all this. So that added time.
Yeah. So that took a little time, but ultimately we got a verbal agreement and we thought we were good. So we signed a letter of intent. I put a deposit down and I pulled the trigger on that $250,000. And so we had an account sitting there with $250,000 in it.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Okay. So now things get interesting because as we're going through for settlement, we cleared all the hurdles. We think we're good. We're going for the home stretch. But the one thing we didn't do yet is that one little thing
that gives me anxiety.
One little thing that we were told, make sure you do this just to be sure everything is good. Now, we had a previous history of septic problems because we owned a property in upstate New York where especially you have some trauma over it because I was away on a business trip and you got a knock on the door from the county EPA because there was a septic leak and somebody had reported it. And they basically said, if you don't fix this within a certain number of days, you're going to have to pay a huge fine. It was a ridiculous fine or go to jail. And this guy's an officer of the court serving you papers while I was gone and you freaked out.
And I was doing daycare. So I had a house full of kids and I was like, what? I was so confused.
So to suffice to say that all worked out well. I got everything done on time, but it was costly because we had to have a septic architect approve the plans. The county had to approve the plans just to put in one extra pipe.
Yeah.
We had to go all through this stuff. And it was like the actual work probably cost $2,000, but I think the whole job ended up costing me close to $20,000 because of the architect and the approvals and the permits and the fees and the equipment and all that type of stuff. So ridiculous just to put one pipe in. So we vowed never to have septic again. And then we ended up with septic again.
We almost forgot to have that last inspection. And it was the final walkthrough that we went to go do because she had moved everything out at this point and we wanted to do one final walkthrough to make sure everything was okay. And I went to go use the bathroom and I'm like, wait. Being someone who has had septic and family members who have septic, you tend not to flush toilet paper down the toilet unless it's safe, septic safe. And the bathroom I used, all the toilet paper was in the basket. And I was like, So I went to the other one and I'm like, So we got in the car.
So the toilet paper was in the basket and the other one as well.
Yeah.
So she was putting her toilet paper in a basket instead of down the drain.
Down a drain. And it just triggered me to the trauma that we had that we were like, what? And I was like, Ray? And then that's when you were like, oh my God, we have to do that. And then we checked if we had time and we did. And then.
Yeah. So we had the septic come out. It's actually one of the reasons it's not that I forgot. We had trouble finding a septic person who would do the inspection.
The way we like to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's just not like it's there. We are very thorough when it comes to septic.
I guess specifically you're right, but I was trying to find a septic inspector who would also pump because I wanted them to do a full analysis, not just a visual inspection, but pump it and actually see the walls and evaluate the system, see the water coming out from the house and trace it all properly. A good quality inspection, maybe even put cameras down the drain if things looked a little suspect, right? Well, I was finding plenty of inspectors who would just come out like on site and do an inspection and tell you the rate that you needed and is it sized properly and all, but they wouldn't pump. They're like, no, that's somebody that's a septic pumping company and inspectors are different. Finally, I found some guy who was kind of headstrong, professional, knew his trade, and he was like, look, let me meet you out there, Ray. if I think I need to pump to tell you, I'll pump. But sometimes we even just have trouble finding the place. I might have to charge you just to find it. I don't know yet. Let me just come out there and see what's what, and I'll advise you from there. Right? This man never even charged me anything.
Yeah.
But I told him, well, no, please charge me for the visit at least, So I did end up paying him, but he didn't want to charge me. So he came out and he's like, let me show you. Like, Ray, are you here? We had a little bit of a delay on the drive.
Oh,
and he's
because
like,
of the storm.
Are you here yet? Because I've got some stuff I need to show you. Okay, so we get there. Let me rewind a second. During all this stuff we're talking about, there was this mysterious water drain cover out in the parking lot. And it was like a storm drain cover.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's a little strange for a storm drain cover to be in the parking lot. And while we were trying to get confirmation of the septic appointment, the broker kept on telling me, well, she tells me that the septic is right there in the parking lot. And I'm like, there's no way. There's no way she has a septic in a parking lot. Septic systems don't work that way. You can't do that. You can't pave over a septic system. That was clearly marked a storm drain. I can show you pictures because when we were out there, it said storm drain on it.
Yeah.
Right? She's like, well, I don't know what to tell you. They're telling me that that's the septic system. I was like, no way. If that just can't be the septic system. You're wrong. So septic guy comes over and says, he pulls off the storm drain cover and there's the septic system.
Yep.
In the middle of a parking lot.
Yep.
Is the septic system.
And he proceeded to tell us that it backed into the house a few times.
It's so full that there's no way that it didn't back up into the house. He can see evidence of that from the system. It's like, he's like, it looks like it's hitting the cap. Like they sealed the cap down with bolts so that it wouldn't be able to spew effluent up into the parking lot, which means it's getting forced down into the ground and probably contaminating the ground around here, probably seeping into the water system, which is illegal and not good.
Yeah.
And most definitely backing up into the house.
Yeah.
Or into the property. It was like a converted house business. It was that type of thing.
Yeah.
So now things got really interesting. And here's how the conversation went a little bit. Number one, she did this. She paved over the parking lot. And that's illegal. You cannot put paving over a septic system or in a leach field. So he's like, I'm not even going to try to locate the leach field, but the only place I can imagine it being is under this parking lot. Like the way this system is laid out, the leach field, for those of you who don't know, the leach field is where after the septic system kind of processes the waste and it becomes kind of like dirty water with bacteria in it, it goes out into the leach field that then slowly seeps into the ground. And when it's done properly, it's kind of filters through the rock over time. And by the time it's done, there's no more bacteria, no more waste. It's just kind of regular, healthy bacteria for the earth, and water just seeps back in and everything's good. No contaminants. That's how it's supposed to work. But it needs evaporation as well. It needs to be able to evaporate, to breathe. Yeah. So that was all paved over. So now I'm starting to ask him questions like, all right, wait a minute. Can't we just put in a new septic system? And he's like, well, you're going to have to check with the county, but I don't see any place that you would actually be able to put another leach field and another septic system. Like you don't have enough room for a place this size. Even if you were smaller than what you said, like just for the square footage of this space, you're going to need a certain amount of sized septic system and a certain amount of size leach field for that septic system. And I just don't see, even with the modern stuff that's like super efficient aerobic bacteria with a special pump in there that doesn't need a lot of space, you just don't have enough space for the leach field even. So I don't know how you're going to do it. I don't know how it would be approved.
And then he said, it doesn't matter anyways. I wouldn't spend the money on a new septic because in about 2025 or 2026, everyone along this interstate is going to have to connect to the sewer.
They're going to be made to.
Yeah.
So then we learned about the sewer project. So the town had previously ran sewer along this highway.
Yep.
And she, at the
time,
they
offered her.
That's right. She was offered to connect to the septic.
For a couple $1,000s.
Well, I think it was 10,000 or so, 10 or 20 even. But still, they offered her, like, we're coming through the area. We have the crews already. If you just want to be part of the sewer system, we will run sewer and you just have to hook it up. But you have to tell us now because we designed the system around who is going to connect and who isn't. She refused.
Yep.
So she stayed on her septic system that is apparently illegal.
Yep.
Now, so he tells us about this project. He says you may want to check with the county and see if the sewer is right there, it'd be super easy to tap into it. So maybe that's your only saving grace. But it's like, you're not going to put a new septic in there, I'm pretty sure. And so I don't know. I can't recommend. There's nothing I can do. I'm not going to pump it. It's not going to waste your money. Don't bother pumping it.
Yeah.
I can already see the system's failed. I can already see it's not working properly. I can already see it's undersized, and I can already see it's illegal by codes because they've paved over the septic system and the leach field, both of which are illegal.
And those are all codes that are being violated that would be transferred to us.
That's right. And if we accepted that business,
it
would be our problem.
It would be our problem, because he said the minute that keys are turned over to us, it's a brand new open book or whatever in the county, and then they're like, wait a minute, they have septic, da 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 da. And then what didn't he tell us?
Yeah, so he said that the county, because of these, they were having trouble enforcing these laws. They check for all the transfer of businesses, a sale of new businesses on areas that they know have septic, and they make sure. So I was going to get into this. You beat me to the punch.
Sorry.
The county. So when I contacted the county and started talking through options, he said, well, let me look up this property. Oh, they're a business with a septic system? They're not registered. I was like, are they grandfathered in? No, there's no such thing. They were supposed to opt in, and probably they slipped through the cracks because any new businesses that transfer hands, we catch in this way. But they must have, slipped through the cracks. We didn't know about it, and therefore they're not a registered business. They should be. And then he starts doing some math, and he says, yeah, based on what you're telling me about the system and the size of that property, they're already in violation. It's what they're operating. It's illegal. They're not registered where they're supposed to be. And the size of the system would have never been approved anyways, because it would need to be bigger. And he's like, now you're telling me it's paved over. Yeah, that's definitely a violation.
Yeah.
So violations upon violations. Okay. So now what can we do? I'm still in the mode.
You're still in the mode.
And red flags,
at
right?
At that point, I'm like, no, I went to the car, because I'm like, no.
No, this is after the fact. I'm talking to the county now. You went to the car with the guy in the septic guy. Now I'm talking to the county days after, though. So days after, I'm trying to figure out, like, is there an option here that's doable? Is this still worth it somehow, some way? And what it comes down to is that, like, there was no way the county would have approved another septic system. And we're already in a situation where there's fines upon fines waiting for whoever buys that property next.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Then if you were to try to tap into the sewer system, which this guy is like kind of like sewer, septic, and waste, so he knew about that as well. He's like, you're going to need it's what's called a forced, what I think it was called forced main sewer, which means it's pressurized. There's pumps. Because of Florida is mostly flat, there's not a lot of hills to take advantage of. So they have to pump the effluent from station to station, almost like they do water. So there are these special lift stations and pumps that move the effluent along. But because of that, you can't just put in a pipe to like tap into it, because that is a pressurized line. So you need like a check valve and a special lift station that keeps the pressure on both sides of that tap in appropriate, so that the city side is going to have a certain pressure that you don't want to come into your side. Your side's going to have a lower pressure, but when it pumps into the city, it needs to be able to tolerate the city's high pressure and still overcome that force so that it can get your effluent out into the city's main. It's a big deal.
Yeah.
So when you do a project like that, anyways, tapping into something that's already been done, you have to rip open the road, and you have to pay for the crew to come out there from the city to repair, to rip open the road for you.
Because it was just brand new laid down. It was just brand new asphalt. Beautiful road.
And the town would have to basically, like schedule that all.
Yeah.
And have a crew come out to rip open the road, tie into the line, have my people tie into the line, and then the city, repair the road work all the whole time, like shutting down the highway and everything. So you need to pay for all that goes into that. So it'd have been hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, he said he did a job down the road, and it was $99,000. He said for your place it would be between that and 110.
No, this was higher than that.
It was higher than
that. Yeah, he was giving us reference to a tiny project where it's already half done.
Oh, okay.
Costs like $99,000. He told me that type of project today, like in today's economy and everything that would need to be done for that location, that $99,000 was when you just have to tap in because everything's right there. He said it was going to be something closer to $200,000 or higher. and including fees and such. So it was going to cost more to deal with all those problems than the business cost itself. In addition, we would have inherited all the, if there were any EPA violations because she's been contaminated groundwater, when they went to go, they would have made us, because the other part you're missing is, as part of that project, there's no way the town would allow that septic to stay there. So you have to rip up all that septic system. It's all got to be removed.
Yeah.
And made sure that the the ground is not contaminated and stuff. So what a mess.
Yeah, it was a mess.
So here we were, last bit of the journey. We thought all we were trying to do was one last little check of the box, and we were going to own this business that we would have been able to turn into like a $600,000 property. I know we would have been able to.
That happened literally the week of closing.
It was days before closing.
Mm-hmm.
Days before our due diligence period ended, which was lined up to be just before the closing.
Yeah. Yep.
Man, we would have been completely screwed. We avoided such a big problem there.
Yeah.
We spent a lot of money getting to that point. That's my only regret. It's always hindsight is 2020.
We would have lost a lot more.
That's right.
I think we would have had a bulldozer everything out.
Oh God.
It started from literally ground up.
That's what I mean. We literally would have lost a $250,000 investment. Like I took $250K out of the bank, and we would have, it would have been completely wasted.
Yeah.
Wow. That would have been, we made some big mistakes, but that would have been the biggest one. What saved us though was both of our attention to detail. Yes, we may have, I don't think, I'm going to choose to say it like this. We didn't ignore red flags. We were trying to pursue that idea that if we can solve problems that other people can't, that's where there's an opportunity.
We also negotiated with those red flags. We also negotiated the price coming down, and it kind of, we were okay with it because our budget was getting bigger, which also would be taken away from fixing the problems. But in the end, we still it's going to be worth so much more.
Right.
I know this.
So I think it's incorrect to characterize it as saying we ignored the red flags. We addressed them. We saw the red flags. Mm-hmm. We understood the consequences of it and managed it successfully, all except for the last one.
Yeah.
The last one was not a red flag. It was a deal breaker.
It was a deal breaker. Yeah.
So that was just too much to deal with. So we had to call the whole deal off. It was, man, I mean, I just remember that you feel like you get punched in the stomach. We were right at the end of the line. I know the seller probably felt devastated as well. She's trying to move on with her divorce. She had a deal on the table ready to go, and it fell through for her as well. But it sickens. It literally, when I think about it sickens me a little, because she had a property that, had she just done the proper maintenance, she would have had a nice investment for herself as well.
Yeah. Just
the basic maintenance and just basically following laws and doing the right thing. She just would have had a nice little investment there. So I guess the lesson learned there that we just want to come back around to is, do sweat the details in business. It really does matter.
Yeah. And get an attorney.
Oh, yeah.
Because we almost didn't. Yeah. I remember there was this vague memory. We almost didn't. We were like, no, we're just going to as is, da, da, da. And then.
Right. What's the point of an attorney? We have to sign a contract as is anyways.
Right. So always get an attorney no matter what.
That the couple $1,000s spent on the attorney and his advice saved us from a $250,000 loss.
Yeah. The other lesson learned is, whatever state you're in, if you're going to open a commercial property, own one, buy one, check on the laws. All of that is on you. You can't go back.
He was telling us most states are like that. There is really? It's not just Florida. It's just the way commercial property works. Yeah. You buy it as is. At the end of the day, it becomes all your problem. So one more topic I wanted to come back around to from a little bit of a different angle. Mm-hmm. This idea that I keep on saying, I've really found myself challenging whether it's true or if I need to amend it. This idea that if you can solve a problem that somebody else can't, that's where opportunity lives. I still believe that's true, but man, I think you really have to know when to pull that out of your sleeve and when not to. Because maybe we could have saved ourselves. I guess I'm regretting a little bit here of the money we spent and the time we spent. It took us we told a story here in a short period of time. It was over a year that this all played out because of all these delays.
But I feel like we learned a lot. I could say we're about 100% sure we're not opening up another salon.
Right.
So that idea in business is out. To me, there was genuine lessons learned.
Lessons learned is always worth considering. I'm just saying, I guess, you know how sometimes I tell you, like, I don't want to have one bad apple spoil the bunch. You know,
Yeah.
I don't want one bad business deal to ruin me. But on the other hand, this idea of mine, every time I've used it to justify to you that we need to keep on going instead of
Yeah.
following your instincts to just like run for the hills.
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe we also need to temper that by following our instincts more.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, it's one thing if you're afraid and conscious of it, but then you look at it objectively and say, yeah, but there's still something exciting about this. And there's still something.
Yeah.
Honestly, if I'm being honest with myself, I was more like convincing myself that there's an opportunity here.
Mm-hmm.
While my gut was telling me, run, something's wrong.
Yeah.
Right. And then I was doing a good job of being convincing to you to make you
excited
and quell those fears. Like,
yeah,
don't listen to that voice.
Yeah.
If we can just solve this.
Yeah.
Now, if we can just solve this.
Yeah.
Now, if we can just solve this. Like at one point, like Ray, it's one too many layers deep of problems to solve. My instincts need to kick in.
I started to, and I think I started to frustrate you because I was like, no, hun, I'm done. Like, this is just way too much. Plus, we were hitting that year mark, and it's like, if it hasn't happened now, I'm just not as
that was like
excited.
Battle fatigue. It just took so long. But I didn't want to abandon a deal just because I had battle fatigue. Like if it was still a good deal, all right, it took a year, but it was a good deal still. So, but I think the lesson for both of us is fine, do try to solve problems that other people can't solve. And that there are opportunities there, but also do pay attention to your instincts.
Yeah. So
be detail oriented, follow your instincts and pursue opportunities that make sense to you and make you feel comfortable.
Yeah.
You know? All right. That's all I think we had for this episode.
Yeah.
So one last thing, what do you want to remind the folks of?
Please like, share, and subscribe.